As a guy, do you hate white floral notes like jasmine, tuberose, gardenia, and you immediately think like, yeah, that's not for me? If so, then this video might change how you look at fragrance.
That's it. Hit night. 22 cents. Get your vibe just right.
Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be taking a deep dive into white floral fragrance notes, and more importantly, why so many of us as men try to avoid these notes. So for a lot of us fragrance lovers, one bad experience with like a single note can be enough for us to like totally write off, full fragrance compositions without even, giving it a try. We just easily brush it to the side. But the question truly is, are, those florals, those white florals, those type of notes, are they really, an issue when it comes to guys and having those kind of notes in our fragrances? So when we think about white floral notes, we usually think about things like jasmine, tuberose, gardenia, stuff like orange blossom, maybe even neroli, which they can kind of be kind of green, but that as well. These floral notes come across as like narcotic, bold, things that make it lean more feminine, in which a guy may say, hey, this fragrance is a bit more feminine leaning more than masculine, or at worst, this fragrance kind of has a grandma type of smell. And when it comes to that, let's be honest, no guy wants to, go around with the image of like smelling like a old grandma lady or actually smelling too feminine. So to be fair, this perception didn't just come out of nowhere. This does have a root to it, and let's dive a little bit into that. So for decades, white florals have been used in fragrances, and back then, they were used like in a very bold and heavy type of a way, in which a lot of the fragrances back then, they stood out because in fragrances back then, like projection and longevity, that was like a no-brainer. People could smell you coming from a mile away. We all have those, burnt in scent memories from our parents, our grandparents that used to wear that fragrance, and you can, it was definitely a signature scent for them back then. They wasn't really buying like multiple fragrances, some in your family may have, but it was usually like those one or two fragrances where you could really tell like, yes, this is my uncle that's coming around the corner. This is granddad that's coming into the house. Those signature scents that had those notes like the carnation, just plenty of floral notes back then that really stood out in fragrances. And with that being said, sometimes they can come with a, negative kind of perception depending on whether you like that fragrance or not. I know for me, back then, smelling like the polo greens and stuff like that, it was like, man, that is like way too strong. And they had room fillers back then. But stuff like that and other vintage type fragrances where if you really don't have nose that develop over time, you really wouldn't appreciate those type of fragrances. And I think more so now, people would tend to have a lot of those vintage fragrances because of the quality of ingredients that was used back then and some of the stuff that you probably couldn't put on skin these days because of compliance and stuff like that. When it comes to this thing in floral notes, and man, one that really, hits home with me is the tuberose. And for me, in my earlier fragrance journey, when I was sampling and acquiring fragrances and blind buying fragrances, which I don't recommend, came across a fragrance that had tuberose, and just so happened tuberose happened to be the main star of the show in this fragrance. It was a situation to where even this day when I'm looking up new fragrances to sample, if I kind of see like tuberose listed there in the notes, there's a chance that I still may pass those fragrances till this day. But I'm here to tell you that is a big issue to have, especially in the world that's full of a variety of fragrances. So if we can, let's just kind of break this down and think of perfumery as an art form, because it is. And let's compare that to like music and food. Let's say in music, you can have a guitar that's extremely loud that kind of makes the song that's unpleasant. But on the other hand, you can still have that same guitar, but played at the right levels with the right melody can make that song sound complete. As well as, like, let's say when you're thinking about food, you're thinking about a dish. Something that can ruin that dish can be a single note, like salt. Too much salt in the dish, basically might as well throw it in the garbage can. But the right amount of salt could give that dish the right amount of kick that makes that dish a masterpiece or your favorite dish. When we think about these floral notes, and when it comes to us guys, we tend to have a problem with stuff like, mainly even the word floral, because it's kind of associated with being feminine and stuff like that. But the thing about the notes is that the experience, the bad experience that we may have had, probably more than likely was from the usage of that single note. It may have been too much. In my case, it was way too much tuberose. But the biggest problem with that is when we say in our mind that we don't like a note and we start to like shut off exploring other fragrances because it has said note in it, we can miss out on some of the best fragrances that we can come across. Some of my most favorite fragrances in my collection have some floral notes that a lot of us may have wrote off. One big one for me, one that you may have heard of, one that have probably caught the buzz of, is Clive Christian's Blonde Amber. And with this, you have one of the notes that I really can't stand if it's not used properly, and that's the note of tuberose. You also have some white tobacco, which is another kind of a white floral. But the way the blend is, the way the tuberose is used in combination with the white tobacco, the other notes that you get in this fragrance, it all comes into like a complete cohesive picture that's pleasing and is palatable. Another one of those white florals that we mentioned was jasmine, and you can find basically jasmine in about every fragrance that you can think of. This fragrance right here, Messire Cedroit Boise Intense, has jasmine in it. More of a supporting note of jasmine in this one. You can still tell it's there because you get that nice white floralness to this fragrance, but the citrus is still, shine just enough to where that white floral doesn't like overwhelm that fragrance. Amouage's Reflection Man, a nice powdery fragrance that also has the note of jasmine. This one right here may take a bit of coming around to, especially if you're not into the powdery floral type of a scent yet. Most times I realize it's just a matter of giving your nose a chance to grow, giving your nose a chance to smell new notes and to start to appreciate the compositions that you can come across. Just a few others to mention that have the note of jasmine. We have Sospiro Dolce Melodia, fantastic tropical fruity scent for the summertime, in which you wouldn't even really think about jasmine twice when it comes to this. And oh yeah, this has gardenia in it as well. And one of my favorite scents, nice orange blossom and jasmine, along with some other notes that really make this fragrance feel regal. Valiant from Bodicea to Victorious. These just to prove the point that I could have missed out on a lot of these great, fantastic fragrances, in which I would say that these fragrances are in my top 20 out of my collection. Man, don't let those single notes stop you from experiencing what could be maybe your top 10, top 5 fragrance. I would say here's a real conversation that we don't really have enough in the fragrance community. Masculinity as a whole really isn't about the fragrance notes themselves. It's really about the confidence that we have in wearing those fragrances. You can come to find that a well-blended white floral fragrance on a man doesn't really come across as feminine. It really can come across as intentional. Like you intentionally put it together with your outfit, the way you present yourself, you groom in that clean, bold, neurotic aspect of those white florals actually feed into everything else that you have going on. So, in closing, the question is, do we really hate certain fragrance notes, white florals included, or are we letting one bad experience with said note ruin us and make us kind of closed-minded to experiencing other fragrances that have those notes as well? So let me know in the comments, what fragrance note do you dislike, probably had a 180 on and you now love, or maybe it's a note that you don't like and you still don't like to this day. Just let me know in the comments. And also, if you enjoy conversations like this where it's not always top 10s, this top 10s that, let me know that in the comments as well, and I will continue to push out more content like this. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and subscribe, click the notification bell, and if you enjoyed the video, also leave me a like or a dislike, drop some comments, stuff like that. And also check out one of these videos.